Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are enjoying your day. Today, we're going to be looking at potentially a tropical nor'easter that's going to be heading up the coast. Currently, the storm is in parts of Louisiana and Mississippi, and it's going to be moving eastward until it hits southeastern Georgia, and then it's going to start to move up the coast along the Carolina coast through Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, and then it's going to move up to the northeast coast and potentially bring some tropical depression or tropical storm force wind speeds and most likely some rough surfing conditions throughout parts of the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. So we're going to be talking about that in today's video as well. We also have two other areas of interest. We have our Tropical Depression 5 out in the Atlantic, and then we also have a Invest out in the Pacific here. So we do have quite a bit going on in terms of your tropics, and this is when it's going to start to really get active, probably just for a short period. Then it will probably go back to being a little quieter, and then once we get into late August and September, October, we're going to be right back to back to back to back, most likely, with these tropical storms. So here's your current National Weather Service page here, and you do see that we have not too much going on. We have some red flag warnings in effect for parts of Nevada and northeastern California, some heat advisories right around Minneapolis, and then we have some air quality alerts and dense fog advisories scattered throughout the Great Lakes and also for parts of northern Colorado there. Other than that, we really don't have too much going on in terms of your watches and warnings today. So here's what currently is going on in terms of your 5-day graphical outlook here, and this is where I really want to focus in on. So first, we're gonna look at this big yellow region that you can see, kind of coning through parts of Florida, Georgia, and then it's gonna move up the coast, and this is through the next 5 days, where it should just about reach parts of the Virginia, North Carolina state line and just offshore of there. We also do see that we have Tropical Depression 5. Now, this yellow region here, this is the tropical nor'easter that I was talking about, that you saw in the thumbnail and that you saw in the title. Now, it has a 10% chance from the National Hurricane Center of developing within the next 48 hours and about a 30% chance of developing within the next 5 days. Now, I think they're being a little bit cautious with this, and I personally will put within the next 5 days probably a 60% chance or maybe even a 70% chance of development. The models have pretty good agreement that some sort of nor'easter system is going to move up the coast. So it's not whether this is going to turn out to be some sort of nor'easter. It's most likely going to be a nor'easter. It's just whether it's going to be a tropical storm here. That's really the big thing that we have to decipher between. So here's your current European ensemble model and what it's showing in terms of the chances of seeing a tropical depression here, and we see we have a 70% chance anywhere in the orange, and then we have in those a bit darker of the orange, that's where we have a 75% chance, 80% chance in that darkest orange, and then into the reds, that's where we have an 85 to 90% chance of tropical depression wind speeds of 20 knots or greater. So it's pretty much a given that's going to become a tropical depression, and it starts to move up the coast. That's where you even see probably 90 to 95% chance of that, and then once it starts to head up the coast, you're still maintaining that 75 to 90% chance of it becoming a tropical depression here. So potentially tropical depression 6 over parts of the east coast, and then as it starts to touch parts of the northeast coast, from many areas through parts of North Carolina, Virginia, parts of Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, even parts of New York, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts, you have about anywhere from a 30 to about 50, maybe even 65, 70% chance of seeing tropical depression wind speeds. The closer to the coast, as usual, is where you're most likely going to see the roughest impacts, including storm surge, most likely. Not pretty minor storm surge, nothing too crazy, but definitely some storm surge. Wouldn't really be too good to be on the beach while this tropical depression is active, and really just take precaution. I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal in terms of causing damage, but I just think it's going to be something of a nuisance here, where you're most likely going to see some stronger wind speeds and also most likely a couple days of rainfall throughout these areas. And then it starts to head up the coast and just south of Canada there. and it moves eastward into the Atlantic. Now, here's where it's really getting a little bit trickier. So, we kind of know that it's most likely going to be a tropical depression, but what we're really trying to figure out is whether this is going to be a tropical storm, whether this could be potentially your E storm or even your F storm if Tropical Depression 5 does form. So, this is something that we have to pay attention to. It's something that's going to be something that we really have to forecast here. And if this does start to become a little bit more likely to become a tropical storm, right now, it has about a 25% chance from the European ensemble models, 25 to 30% chance. So we do have some chance that it does become a tropical storm here, about a 1 out of 3 chance, and I believe this will go up, probably to maybe even 40 or 50% chance as we continue, and it'll just be something that we just have to keep an eye on. Now, this is going to be going between the next about 3 and about 7 days or so, so we still do have a ways out, and this definitely could change quite a bit within the next couple of days, and within the next few days here. So something that we have to keep an eye on here. But for now, we're gonna start to focus in on Tropical Depression 5 and your invest out in the Pacific here. So here's Tropical Depression 5, pretty much eastward, straight eastward of about Hatteras in North Carolina, there in the Outer Banks. So if you go just east of there, that's where it is, and it's a couple hundred miles, about 100 or 200 miles northeastward of Bermuda, right there, which is right there. So it has already passed Bermuda. Right now, the only real threat it poses is over the ocean. So really nothing too drastic. The only thing that's really too significant about this is that this could potentially become the first, the quickest that we've ever gotten to the E storm, which would be Edward this year. So that'll be something, one of the second record I believe that we're gonna break this year if this does develop within the next few days. So here is your Eastern Pacific. Here in that yellow region, we have a 20 to 30% chance or a 20% chance over the next 48 hours, and and in the next 5 days, we have a 30% chance of development. And then in that red region, we have a 20% chance within the next 48 hours, and then we have within the next 5 days, we have an 80% chance of that developing. So that is your actual invest there, that red region where you have the highest chance of seeing those of turning into some sort of tropical storm here. And then here's the Central Pacific here, and we have a 20% chance within the next 5 days of this yellow region actually developing. So here is currently where your Tropical Depression 5 is, and it's about 64 degrees west, 34 north, so that's a few hundred miles northeast of Bermuda by this point, and it's over the middle of the ocean, so it's not going to really impact land. Again, it's really just important to see if we're actually going to get our fifth named storm this early in the season. Now, here's your cone of uncertainty from the National Hurricane Center. They're expecting this to become a tropical storm somewhere between today and about the morning time on Monday. So we're getting ever closer to breaking that record there. But you see, it is moving northeastward, and it is going to be going out of here. So it's not going to really be too big of a deal for really anybody here, because it's mainly just a fish storm, as we say, for those storms that really only impact sea. So here is your probability of seeing tropical storm force wind speeds. We have a 5 to 30% or a 5 to 20% chance of seeing that. I think this is way too low. I think this should be a little bit higher, probably 40 to 60% chance there of becoming a tropical storm. Now, here is your model track guidance, and these are your main models. Most of them actually bring this to about Great Britain, and if you some of these models don't go out that far, but you can kind of imagine that they would also go with these three models. So most of these models bring this northeastward and potentially even impacting parts of Great Britain there as it starts to move through, and that would happen within the next about 3 to 4 days, where it would be impacting parts of Northern Europe. Now, here's your GEFS model guidance, and this is your GFS ensemble models, and this also has most of these models agreeing that it's going to go northeastward. And then here is your GEPS model guidance, your Canadian model ensemble models, and we have again most of those moving northeastward there. Now, Here's your intensity guidance for Tropical Depression 5, and we do have about half and half of them going to a tropical storm. And if it were to be a tropical storm, probably on the lower end of a tropical storm, definitely not becoming any type of high-end tropical storm or a hurricane. Now, here is your Invest. Now, this is Invest 96E here, and this is about 100, I would say probably 115 degrees west and about 14 degrees north here. And this is pretty much west of about Central America there by about 1,000 miles or so. Now here is your model guidance, and most of these have this storm doing a little bit of a loop and then moving westward there, and then here's your GEFS ensemble model guidance, and for your GFS ensembles, we have most of them doing pretty much the same that the main models are doing. And here's your Canadian ensemble models, and again, most of them bring this just westward, pretty much making a little bit eastward of a turn and then moving back around to the west. And you can see here it's a couple 100 miles south and southwest of California there. So here's your model intensity guidance, and one of these models wants to bring this to the first hurricane of the Pacific season, or the Pacific hurricane season, or the Atlantic hurricane season. So that'll be something to definitely watch out for. But most of these models not even bringing this to a tropical storm. Two of these models bringing this to a tropical storm. One of them bringing it to a Category 1 hurricane. This is one storm that we really have not too high of confidence in terms of we really don't know whether this will be a tropical storm or even maybe even a hurricane. There's a lot of uncertainty within the models. Now that is gonna wrap it up for your model intensity guidance, and here is actually what your chances are of seeing some tropical depression wind speeds throughout parts of the eastern Pacific. Now, this is your Invest 96E right here. This is what you really want to pay attention to, and we actually have a 95 to about 100% chance of this forming into a tropical depression. What we really need to look at is your chances of this turning into a tropical storm, and we have this is your main area right here. We have about a 30 to about 50% chance, maybe even 60% chance of this developing into some sort of tropical storm here in the eastern Pacific. And then here is your Atlantic side of things, and this is where we can kind of look at Tropical Depression 5, and you see it's right over here. We have a about 45 to about 60% chance of this maintaining tropical depression wind speeds. It currently already has tropical depression wind speeds, and then here is your chance of seeing tropical storm force wind speeds, and it's actually a decent chance, about 40 to even 60%, or a 40 to about 50% chance of seeing those tropical storm wind speeds. So it is definitely a decent chance that we do see some sort of tropical storm develop, and that would be Tropical Storm Edward in the northern Atlantic here. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications. And also be sure to definitely make sure you have notifications on, because I will be posting my fall forecast, my first fall forecast, on the 10th of July, and then also which is in 5 days. And then on the 15th of July, I'll be posting my first winter forecast, and I'm going to have a couple more of those fall and winter forecasts as we move through all the way until we get to about November and December, which is when I'll stop the fall and winter forecast for 2020. Now that is going to wrap it up. Again, make sure you do subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.